Go.
Go live. And
Well,
work.
you talk to him. Huh?
All right. You go ahead. we're live. Hello, everybody.
I was going to say, but I want to go get more coffee.
We'll go get another cup of coffee. You go right
say
ahead.
Hi to everybody.
I will say hi to everybody. We'll get the show on the road.
All right, I'm going to go get coffee.
I have to shut something off here before. There we go, because it's talking in the background. Don't you worry, people. We are good to go here, and I got to shut this thing off. Okay. Okay, there we go. I'm running the bus, everybody. Andromeda 7 was really good. That was awesome. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, everybody. That was for putting that on. Mandy Moo, that was awesome. I caught most of that. I had it playing in the background and watching it on my phone while me and David were talking. But there comes everybody piling in. I didn't want to.
Don't say that that men can't be gentlemen, because we waited on the ladies to finish.
That's right.
So there are some of us that still have a little bit of gentleman in us.
I wasn't gonna steal the ladies' stuff. Besides, that Egyptian stuff is really great because everybody was over there listening intently. It was very interesting. Thank you.
I hated to drop out.
Oh yeah, me too. Anyway, David Castle's in the house, and Deborah Truax, and Elderberry Farm Out.
Elderberry, I just want to say your comment about the forest and running naked. I get it. My place is like that too. He wrote that in the chat and I didn't answer, but I got a big kick out of that, Elderberry.
Yep. Susan Sashi. Josh? I don't know. Suzanne Shash. She says, I'm over here now.
It's easy for you to say.
And Michelle, Can-Am Free. I'm really trying to convince her to come on the show. She'll be on one of these days. She's been putting out some really good videos. Everybody, you go right on over there and check her out. And Deborah Sloan's in the house. Hello. See, and there's Lori from Andromeda, the portal. Howdy, folks. See, there she is. Pure Love Ascension. Or was it? Oh, somebody. They got too many of them over there. I can't tell who's who. Lucky Stone. I don't know who was driving the bus tonight. But anyway, we got our own stuff going on. We waited, and that was good. And thank you for putting that on. And we are good tonight, aren't we?
Oh yeah.
I'm doing I got to work tomorrow, but I'm staying up late. I've been drinking my tea. I got my tea. It's keeping me going. But tonight we are going to learn some more about the Native American stuff. Like we've been doing. I got my big book out. And do you want to say the beginning, whatever you know how you do that, the greetings?
I do that thing. Yeah. Greetings and blessings to all. And we humbly say thank you for showing up. And we wish blessings from the great creator for everyone. So there
you go. Can't start a show without that. That's like tradition, man.
And and there's nothing wrong with prayer. Having a simple saying like thank you to the universe and thank you to the people in the Soul Tribe. And, with all the love and everything that's out there, you too, Michelle, I see you, but everybody else too, because it takes courage to stand up and say to everyone, I love you. It's okay in the chat, but when you do it in front of a camera and you say, hi, everybody, I'm Umpty Scrunch, and I just want to tell you all that I love you. That takes courage. And I applaud everybody who does it. We need more of it. But anyway,
absolutely.
It's a little off topic, but it isn't.
No, but it's hey, Sun Rabbit, that was really good. I see Sun Rabbits in the house. Hey, anyway, you're right. It takes a lot of courage, and that's putting out of yourself. And like you said about saying the prayer, it's Wayne has this thing with the favor thing and the boss stove thing, and you do that a little bit, and that's kind of like the prayer. I say it every day, and I feel so much better. I mean, it doesn't matter what you say or what you do, but you're giving out gratitude, that love to everything else. You're saying that you're appreciative of what you have and who you have in your life.
Yes. And for even if you have a bad day, you're still alive. You still got your stuff. I mean, so we were talking just before the show to try to, take up some time and get warmed up. But I had a house burned down in 1984, and then I found this place. But, 1 minute you have all your stuff, and the next minute you ain't got nothing. You literally only have what you have on your back. Because when the house is on fire, you get out, you get you and yourself. And, so having had, I consider everything, all my old stuff, my albums and things, and to have, my $300 Giannini guitar burst into flame, it's like, oh my God. But so you lose all your stuff, but you are so thankful the next day that you are alive. And that you can, even though you got to start over, you at least have the chance.
Yeah. Because
no matter how bad it is, there's always that thing. Well, at least I can start over, But anyway.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. When the day is all over, what do you really have? Yourself, your memories in your head, and your friends.
Right.
And you're all my friends out there. You all are. And I love you all.
And across the world.
And across the world, everywhere.
In the UK.
Everywhere.
And we've got friends all over the world. I mean, you said it one time to me, Robert. You said, you're famous, Dave, all over the world. And I hadn't really thought about it that way. And I was like, actually, yeah, because we are famous in that we know people literally from different parts of the world. And I just think that's fantastic. And that we can share in our differences because of our locations, but we can also share, and this is going to tie into into the Native American thing, because Native American and Aboriginal peoples had this instinctive thing within them where I've talked about this before, but white cultures just don't seem to have that in them. There are people who do, but as a general rule of thumb, and not all native peoples were like good guys or women either way, but there's fruitcakes in every scenario. But the bottom line of all these thousands of years, that what has gotten us through, it's the tribes of the Americas, it's the villages in the UK, the Vikings, the Scandinavian folks. I mean, it's the groups of people that worked together to make something happen. And by yourself, I live by myself with the dog, and it's really hard sometimes to do some things because somebody's supposed to hold the other end of the board, So, but anyway, this ties in though to Native American stories and things that we want to discuss, and that some of these things, as the Egyptian thing in Andromeda 7, some of these things are so ancient. Some of these things I actually think predate Egyptians or whatever. And there's more knowledge coming up that, the Vikings were here in North America long before, there was any written record of them. The Egyptians were here. There was used to be, and they took them all out, but there used to be, on the Mississippi River and out into the Gulf of Mexico, there used to be pillars of stone that had hieroglyphs on them. And the old sailors around in Louisiana and Mississippi down there on the Gulf Coast, they went out there one day and their landmarks were gone. So what are Egyptian hieroglyphs doing in the Mississippi River? So we think that, well, and I was going to bring this point up too before. I've often wondered if the Egyptians went up the Mississippi, where did the town of Memphis come from? Because there's a Memphis in Egypt. Just so my brain looks at that and goes, well, they probably had a reason, but is the reason actually something more ancient than what our current history says? Well, we named this town Memphis because maybe it was named because of 2,000 years ago there were people from Memphis in Egypt here. Just saying. But anyway,
could be. And on that topic, yeah, speaking of moving around, remember the last time, our last show, we were talking about Tecumseh, remember? Yes. And I said how he moved around a lot. Well, I found a little part of that in here about Tecumseh. And so I'm going to read that. It says, after the Revolution, Americans eyed the Ohio River Valley as an area for national expansion. To resist the encroachment, Tecumseh, a young Shawnee chief, conceived the idea of a vast Indian confederacy. Most tribes claimed the right to dispose of their own hunting grounds, but Tecumseh claimed that the land was held in common by all the tribes, and no one tribe could sell its particular tract. Sell a country, he thundered. Why not sell the air, the clouds, and the great sea? Did not the Great Spirit make them all for the use of his children? Tecumseh determined to hold the Ohio River as a dividing line between the races. He tirelessly visited tribes from Wisconsin to Florida, enlisting support for his movement. Get that? Wisconsin to Florida. How long does that take to drive in a car? And this guy was doing it tirelessly over and over. Often, dispirited elders opposed him, but the Shawnee proposals had an electrifying effect on young braves. After 1808, he and his brother, known as the Shawnee Prophet, began to gather a warrior band at the Tippecanoe, their Indiana headquarters on the Washbash. On November 7th, Wabash, thank you. On November 7th, 1811, while Tecumseh was away, the prophet fought a premature battle at Tippecanoe with the Americans under General Henry Harrison and was defeated. Frustrated as the Indian movement degenerated into ineffective, isolating uprisings, Tecumseh joined the British in the War of 1812 and fell in battle on the Thames River on October 5th, 1813, at the age of 45. With Americans' great Indian leader dead, the plan for the Indian nation remained unrealized vision. Go figure.
And now on that same point, the Cherokee were used, the Indian nations were used to fight the British in the War of 1812. And then what did Andrew Jackson do when he was elected? He rounded up all the Indians and sent them, on the Trail of Tears.
Yeah.
So they used them, and even some of the Indians even fought with Jackson and the mighty Mississippi, as the song goes. But and then they said, well, we love you so much, we're going to take your land, we're going to throw you off of Mother Earth and, make you march 1,000 miles to God knows what. But so, that's been, to take the words of Tecumseh in that, why don't we sell them air or the ocean? Mm-hmm. So we think, many people think that the American Indians were stupid. No. They were not necessarily nomads, but they had to go to different grounds. If it was snowing too much, they went south. Now, the Cherokee, there's a trail 2 miles from my house, from my location, called the Thigpen Trail, and it goes all the way up into Connecticut. This was an old trading route that the Indians established before the white man came. Mm-hmm. And there's even markers and stuff, and they named it, of course, after some general, But the Native Americans were coming out of the mountains, the Smoky Mountains, and going down it just right by my house kind of sort of thing, all the way down into Panacea into Florida. And they would fish during the wintertime when it was really cold. Now, the old people couldn't go, so they stayed behind. But the Braves, they had lines set up. They were probably passing each other. Where did shells come from? from the Indians that went down into Florida. Some of them stayed there and became Seminole after a long time, and stayed in the swamp. But they would bring shells back. They would dry the fish and bring it back to the folks that were stuck at home, So, and the trade began. So, but the trade has been going on for thousands of years. This Thigpen Trail, how did the Indians find it? It's been there for thousands of years, So anyway,
yeah. Oh,
but Tecumseh, so they didn't see the need in owning anything because they felt like Mother Earth was for everybody. But nowadays, it ain't like that. You buy a piece of property, you don't buy it, you're only renting it.
Yeah, that's right. So to contrast this, I was, reading through this book, and, we're always talking about the Eastern Indians a lot, and we know about the, Plains Indians a lot. And I found this part about the Pacific Northwest Indians. And so I'm going to read this about I bet you never heard of this is called the Slavers of Nootka. I think I pronounced that right. Anyway, in March this is a very contrasting, different type of Indian, believe it or not. Now, once I show you the pictures, you might think, well, we were talking about the travels of Egypt and all that. You're going to question this. In March of 1778, Captain James Cook anchored his ship, the Resolution, in a snug harbor on the west coast of Vancouver Island. The Indians who gave their name to this anchorage, Nukuta Sound, formed one of the handful of magnificently barbaric tribes inhabiting the rainforest of a 1,200-mile coastline slashed with fjords and studded with mist-shrouded islands from Puget Sound to the Alaskan Panhandle. Theirs was a wealthy and energetic society, for the region was rich in salmon, sea animals, and fur-bearing animals. A rigid caste system divided its people into commoners, nobles, and in some cases, pseudo-royalty. But what appalled explorers like Cook was enthusiastic traffic in slaves that resulted from one tribe's periodic raids against another. Only wealth and audacious spending of it seemed to count for anything among the Northwest Coast Indians, and the ownership of other human beings was a concrete, easily demonstrable form of wealth. To display his absolutely scorn of his possessions, a chief might have a slave killed and buried with the sinking of a new house post, or to have the canoe of a visitor dragged up onto the beach over the bodies of slaves especially slaughtered for the purpose. From the Nukuta Indian, Captain Cook received a quality of sea otter skins, a commodity which found an eager market. When his expedition touched at China en route back to England, in the next 20 years, over 100 ships reached the Northwest coast as Britain, Spain, and Russia and America began contending for region's incredible wealth of furs. Now, here's a picture, and you see that. This is a picture of one of the Indian people that they recorded there. Look at, they're bearded and they got the little cone hat on. What do they look like, more or less?
Chinese.
Yeah, they would look more like Chinese than they do,
Oriental, we'll say.
Yeah, which would kind of go with the caste system and the nobility, and so in some ways you could almost, I'm hypothesizing here that you would think that the Chinese or Japanese or somebody would have sailed over and had an influence on them at some point in time. Saying,
well, if we go back to the Ice Age thing where they supposedly walked across the landmass.
Yep.
So we also have that, which is there's some discrepancy in that some of these people were here when they walked over.
Mm-hmm.
There were already people here. We have to just accept that. But it shows the difference though in that they have facial hair and they had cone-shaped hats, which is not, you look at all the other tribes and you don't really see that.
No,
It's
they
just
ain't
that's not there. So it had to come from some type of cultural event.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they
some
brought it with them.
influence.
So I could see where they walked across, during the Ice Age. And we also have to understand the Pangea effect. There used to be one great big continent.
Well, but that's millions of years ago. But I'm just saying here, but here we're talking about the Egyptians sailing all the way over to, maybe the states and going into the Grand Canyon or going to Australia. Well, China and Japan are a lot closer to the Northwest than
Yes,
the Egyptians. I mean, think about how far the Egyptians had to go to get to Australia
right.
or the states. I mean, it'd be nothing for them to, they're a seafaring people. I mean, it makes sense. Japan is like an island. They're
It
going to be
is an island.
seafaring. Yeah, they're going to be seafaring people.
Right.
Of course, and they're going to sail and they're going to get off track, and so I'm going to read the caption about those pictures we've seen, which is very interesting. The two drawings on this page are from a journal of Thomas de Acera, a member of Angero, I'm mispronouncing that, Mispala's 1791 Spanish expedition to the northwest coast. Looking much like a medieval crossbow, the warrior at the right is protected by a visored wooden helmet, and an body armor. A hardwood slats used by the Tingler, I don't even know how, and the
Blanket.
yeah, that's it, to link it, and the Hattings and the I don't know, Tismans. The man below in the conical basketry hat wears a nose pin, a mark of personal adornment used throughout the area. The men of the Northwest coast in general had more facial hair than most American Indians.
Yes.
So where did they get that stuff from?
Right.
The genes, you get that through genes.
Well, to
We
the
know
same
that
point,
stuff now.
and with the going back to Andromeda 7 and the showing of the boats, I put in the chat room, and we have to remember that the Vikings boats were very similar.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you go down through history, the Vikings had a greater influence than we could ever really think about. And so there's been, it is said from some tribe members that I talked to that there were men who came over from across the sea a long time ago. How do we get red-haired Iroquois?
Yeah.
Period. But there were redheads and of course there were giants in those days. But it's probably more that there was a red-haired Eric the Viking or something that came over, and they took wives and they stayed. And some of the guys said, "Nah, I ain't going back. I ain't going. I'm going to stay here. You guys come back." And they did that back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, some of them folks, all right, anybody here want to stay? We want to keep a foothold here. So a red-haired person, sends the gene down the line because he takes a native wife. That was very common back in the day. So this idea, though, that the DNA hasn't been tampered with, maybe not by aliens, but by humans, by just the effects of humans, period.
Yep.
So, but anyway.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. But like I said, it just reading those things, it just tells you how these people, they were traveling.
Yes.
These these Indians were, the East Coast were traveling. The Plains Indians were nomadic, and then these ones on the coast there, they had influence from somebody else, obviously, because they weren't like any of the other ones across the country.
Right.
they had a different influence at some point in time. Just like you said, you know, these guys got facial hair and those ones got red hair. How does that happen?
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, I'm not stupid, but I could see a Chinese hat on his head. You know, maybe they couldn't duplicate it at the time, and of course, when you duplicate something, you use what's in your area.
Yes.
You know, I mean, if I'm going to build a house and I don't have trees, I'm going to build it out of what I got. If I got rocks, then I'm going to have a rock house. You know.
Well, see, in the native peoples of the plains, they created their houses out of skins
Yeah, because
and
that's what they had.
poles.
Yes.
And so, and the reason that they weren't necessarily nomadic, but I guess from our standpoint they were, but they had places they would go in the summertime. They had a summer home, and they had and they had a winter home, so they would travel between these places. So they also didn't see the necessity in having a permanent structure. Now, the peoples of the Southwest had rocks and things. They built caves, and that was home.
Yep.
The Cherokee peoples, they didn't build teepees. They actually made they had some very fine old log homes, and that the Cherokee Nation had a constitution that was very similar, and some would say they copied, and I can't remember the chief's name, but they copied the Cherokees' constitution for the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The basics of it,
Yes.
And so, and the Cherokee Nation was very great, and traveled a lot. They traveled north to get, different metals or whatever, because those folks knew stuff, and there was a lot of trade. How did you get seashells in Minnesota?
Yeah.
They were traded from folks who went down to Florida to go fishing, and the trade, and that's how it was. And those types of things were very they were prized possessions. It'd be like, a diamond ring for somebody now, or a gold watch or something. That's how prized it was. So, but anyway.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I did my part for the history part. Now, where are you going to go with it today? We're gonna do a little reading out of the Native American book. Now, I don't know if you guys got that, the PDF. If you've seen this one, this is what book we're going to be reading out of. It's Native American Myths and Legends, and David's got a few picked out. Now, if you see, I can pull this up, and now I'm sharing. That should work. Let's see.
We're going to go to page 107 first. Now, as I do card readings that most of you all know that I do, I asked Creator, what do you want me to see? What is important? What are the stories, etc. And so, which is interesting that I picked this story before Robert told me that he was going to read about the Northwestern tribe. Anyway, and this particular story is called The Earth Dragon, and it's Northern California coast, which is not quite to Alaska, but it's there. So before this world was formed, there was another world with a sky made of sandstone rock. Now think about that. They knew that there were other realms back then, way back. Okay, so we have to understand that they understood things differently. Now, they had two gods, Thunder and Nakachina, saw that old sky being shaken by thunder. The rock is old, they said. We'll fix it by stretching it above, far to the east. They stretched the sandstone, walking on the sky to do it. Interesting that the Bible calls the firmament the sky, just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And under each of the sky's four corners, they set a great rock to hold it up. Then they added the different things that would make the world pleasant for people to live in. In the south, they created flowers. In the east, they put clouds so that people wouldn't get headaches from the sun's glare. To form the clouds, they built a fire, then opened a large hole in the sky so that the clouds could come through. In the west, they made another opening for the fog to drift in from the ocean. And I've been on the California coast, and oh my God, the fog. Now the two gods were ready to create people. They made a man out of earth and put grass inside him to form his stomach. They used another bundle of grass for his heart, round pieces of clay for the liver and kidneys, and a reed for the windpipe. They pulverized red stone and mixed it with water to form his blood. Now that's interesting.
It is.
After putting together man's parts, they took it. They took one of his legs, split it, and turned it into a woman. His leg.
Well, that's different.
They then made a sun to travel by day and a moon to travel by night. But the creations of the gods did not endure, for every day and every night it rained. All the people slept. Floodwaters came and great stretches of land disappeared. The waters of the oceans flowed together. Animals of all kinds drowned. Then the waters completely joined, and there were no more fields or mountains or rocks, only water. There were no trees, no grass, no fish or land animals or birds. Human beings and animals all had been washed away. The wind no longer blew through the portals of the world, nor was there snow or frost or rain. It did not thunder or lightning, since there were no trees to be struck. There were neither clouds nor fog, nor did the sun shine. It was very dark. Then the earth dragon, with its great long horns, got up and walked down from the north. It traveled underground, and the god Najiko rode on its head. As it walked along through the ocean depths, the water outside rose to the level of its shoulders. When it came to shallower places, it turned its head upward, and because of this, there was a ridge near the coast of the north upon which the waves break. When it came to the middle of the world, in the east under the rising sun, it looked up again, which created a large island near the coast. Far away to the south, it continued looking up and made a great mountain range. In the south, the dragon lay down, and Nachigiko placed its head as it should be and spread gray-colored clay between its eyes and on each horn. He covered the clay with layers of reeds and then spread another layer of clay. On that he put some small stones and then set blue grass and brush and trees in the clay. I have finished, he said. Let these be mountain peaks on the earth's head. Let the waves of the sea break against them. The mountains appeared, and the brush sprang up on them. The smell of the small stones he had placed on Earth's head became large, and the head itself was buried from sight. Now people appeared, people who had animal names. Later, when Indians came to live on the earth, these first people were changed into their animal namesakes. Seal, sea lion, and grizzly bear built a dance house. One woman by the name of Whale was fat, and that is why there are so many stout Indian women today. Now, they may disagree with you on that, but anyway, the god, small g, by the way, the god Nakachiko caused different seafoods to grow in the water so that the people would have things to eat. He created seaweed, abalones, mussels, and many other things. Then he made salt from ocean foams. He caused the water of the ocean to rise up in waves and said that the ocean would always behave that way. He arranged for old whales to float ashore so that people would have them to eat. He made redwoods and other trees grow on the tail of the great dragon, which lay to the north. He carved out creeks by dragging his foot through the earth so that people would have good fresh water to drink. He created many oak trees to provide acorns to eat. He traveled all over the earth, making it a comfortable place for men. After he had finished, he and his dog went walking to see how the new things looked. When they arrived back at their starting point in the north, he said to his dog, "We're close to home. Now we'll stay here." So he left this world where people live, and now he inhabits the north. Now, what I found interesting about this story about the dragon is that, there are volcanoes and earthquakes, and that's where the dragon lays or lies, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But and you had brought up the Northwest, so it's like there's a little synchronicity in that. So, in kind of, they wanted me to sort of stay on a theme
Mm-hmm.
and having to do with the flood and the earth and beginnings. So this next one is on page 120, and it's called The Voice, the Flood, and the Turtle. Now it's two and a half, not quite two and a half page, 2 pages. So I tried to pick short stories that wouldn't bore you. Well, once there was a chief whose wife, to the fear and wonder of the people, gave birth to 4 little monsters. The elders said, "These strange children will bring great misfortune. It would be better to kill them right now for the sake of the tribe." Now, as an aside note, the Tlingit tribe, which Robert brought up, um, I knew a legend keeper from the Tlingit tribe whose stories were over 3,000 years old. And he said that there were 4 basic tribes. And I can't remember, he could tell you which, if two of the, if a man and woman from the wrong tribes got together and had a child, they would take that child out on the ice right after it was born, because they knew somehow, not to be cruel, but it would mess up the genetic pool of the 4 major tribes of the Tlingit. They didn't want to, two people from the same tribe, okay, but if you mixed with this one or that one, nah, can't do it. You could lead the tribe, but you anyway. So this, it would be better to kill them right now for the sake of the tribe, and they absolutely believed that for thousands of years. "No way will we kill them," said their mother. "These children will turn out all right by and by." But they didn't turn out all right. These small monsters grew fast, much faster than ordinary children, and became very big. Could they be monsters? I mean, giant. Anyway, they had 4 legs and arms each. They hurt other children. They upset teepees. They tore up buffalo robes. They befouled people's food. A wise man who could see things in his mind, which had not yet happened, he was a soothsayer, I guess, said, "Kill these strange bad things before they kill you." But their mother said, "Never. They'll be fine young men someday." Well, they never became fine young men. Instead, they started killing and eating people. At that point, all the men in the village rushed at them to do away with them, but by then it was too late. The monsters had become too big and too powerful to be killed. They grew taller and taller. One day they went into the middle of the camp and stood back to back, one facing east, one facing south, one west, and one facing north. Their backs grew together and they became one. As they grew higher and higher, most people took refuge near the monster's feet, where the huge creatures could not bend down to catch them. But people who stayed farther off were seized by mile-long arms, killed and eaten. The 4 monsters, now grown together, rose up to the clouds and their heads touched the sky. Then the man who could see into the future heard a voice telling him to set up a hollow reed and plant it in the ground. The man did, and the reed grew bigger and bigger very fast. In no time, it rose to touch the sky. The man heard the voice again saying, "I will make a great flood. When the signs of bad things coming appear, you and your wife climb up inside this hollow cane. Be naked as you were born, and take with you a pair of all of the good animals in order to save them." Sounds like Moses, don't it? The man asked, "What sign will you be sending?" The voice said, "When all the birds in the world, birds of the woods, the sea, the deserts, and the high mountains, form up into a cloud flying from north to south, that will be the sign. Watch for the cloud of birds." Now that's interesting. One day the man looked up and saw a big cloud made of birds traveling from north to south. At once he and his wife moved up into the hollow reed, taking with them all the animals they wished to save. Then it began to rain and did not stop. Waters covered the earth and kept rising until only the top of the hollow cane and the heads of the monsters were left above the surface. Inside the hollow reed, the man and his wife heard the voice again. Now I shall send Turtle to destroy the monsters. The monsters' heads were saying to each other, brothers, I'm getting tired. My legs are weakening. I can't keep standing much longer. The flood swirled around them with great uh, currents that almost swept them away. Then the great turtle began digging down underneath the monsters' feet. It uprooted them, and they could not keep their footing, but broke apart and toppled over. They fell down into the waters, one sinking north, one towards the east, one towards the south, and one towards the west. Thus the four directions came into being. After the monsters had drowned, the waters subsided. First the mountaintops reappeared, then the rest of the land. Next came hard blowing winds that dried the earth. The man climbed down to the bottom of the hollow reed and opened the hole at its foot. He looked out, he stuck out his hand and felt around. He said to his wife, come out, everything is dry. So they emerged, followed by all the animals. They left the reed, which collapsed and disappeared. But when they stepped out on the earth, it was bare. Nothing was growing. The wife said, husband, there's nothing here, and we are naked. How shall we live? The man said, go to sleep. They lay down and slept, and when they woke the next morning, all kinds of herbs had sprung up around them. The second night, when they slept, trees and bushes grew. Now there was firewood to keep them warm, and all kinds of woods for making bows and arrows. During the third night, green grass covered the earth, and the animals appeared to graze on it. Change the page. The man and his wife went to sleep a fourth time and woke up inside a grass hut. They stepped out and found a stalk of corn. Then they heard the voice say, this will be your holy food. It told the woman how to plant and harvest the corn and ended with, now you have everything you need. Now you can live. Now you will have children and form a new generation. If you, woman, should plant corn and something other than corn comes up, then know that the world will come to its end. After that, they never heard the voice again.
Wow, now doesn't that sound like the Noah's Ark story in Indian form? It really does, doesn't it?
Really, and I mean, it doesn't say how old the story is, but that it's the Cato tribe. But
well, yeah, the thing is, like that first one, I was still talking about, flood waters and
yep.
And that one had the creation of the humans and the land, and it had the flood story, and this one here had kind of the floods, mostly the flood story, and it just told a little bit differently. I think that's pretty cool, that you know what I'm saying is, even though they didn't hear that story, there's something similar saying that how is there so many similar stories? That's the big one. Good question.
And also the fact that in the creation story, the first one with the dragon, is that the earth was covered with water. And there's, there are a lot of scientists that say the whole earth was covered with water. So, here's this story that's thousands of years old. And the scientists go, well, we think that, most of the earth was covered with water at one time. Oh, really? So it doesn't make these native stories a myth anymore. You know what I mean? They may be using, the God, whatever, in their discussion of this. But at the same time, you have to stop and go, well, wait a minute, hang on here. How are we doing on time?
Let's do another one. We can do another one if you want.
All right. Well, there's kind of sort of two. Wait, maybe
Yep.
the second one's a little too much, but um, it starts on 223. Coyote kills the giant.
Yep. I got it
Now,
up already.
yeah, I see. And when I was going through this, the idea of giants kind of goes back to like mythology and the Greeks and that kind of thing. So, and tying into um, what I think a lot of people don't include in the story of Egypt is there were giants in those days. How did they move them big rocks? I think giants were around, period, along with other stuff, but to the point that, we don't consider that. Well, the native folk know that there were giants, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And so, but anyway, so, and on the other side of the world kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Flathead, the tribe, and Coyote kills the giant. Coyote was walking one day and he met Old Woman. She greeted him and asked him where he was headed. Just roaming around, said Coyote. You better stop going that way, she said, or you'll meet a giant who kills everybody. Oh, giants don't frighten me, said Coyote, who had never met one. I always kill them. I'll fight this one too and make an end of him. The old woman said, he's bigger and closer than you think, said the old woman. I don't care, said Coyote, deciding that a giant would be about as big as a bull moose and calculating that he could kill one easily. So Coyote said goodbye to Old Woman and went ahead, whistling a tune. On his way, he saw a large fallen branch that looked like a club. Picking it up, he said to himself, I'll hit the giant over the head with this. It's big enough and heavy enough to kill him. He walked on and came to a large cave right in the middle of the patch. Whistling merrily, he went in. Suddenly, Coyote met a woman who was crawling along the ground. What's the matter? He asked. I'm starving, she said, and too weak to walk. What are you doing with that stick? I'm going to kill the giant with it, said Coyote, and he asked if she knew where he was hiding. Feeble as she was, the woman laughed. You're you're already in the giant's belly. How can I be in his belly? Asked Coyote. I haven't even met him. You probably thought it was a cave when you walked into his mouth, the woman said, and sighed. It's easy to walk in, but nobody ever walks out. This giant is so big, you can't take him in with your eyes. His belly fills a whole valley. Coyote threw his stick away and kept on walking. What else could he do? Soon he came across some more people lying around half dead. Are you sick? He asked them. No, they said, just starving to death. We're trapped inside the giant. You're foolish, said Coyote. If you're really inside this giant, then the cave walls must be the inside of his stomach. We can just cut some meat and fat from him. We never thought of that, they said. Well, you're not as smart as I am, said Coyote. Coyote took out his hunting knife and started cutting chunks out of the cave walls. As he had guessed, they were indeed the giant's fat and meat, and he used it to feed the starving people. He even went back and gave some meat to the woman he had first met. Then all the people imprisoned in the giant's belly started to feel stronger and happier, but not completely happy. You fed us, they said, and thanks, but how are we going to get out of here? Don't worry, said Coyote. I'll kill the giant by stabbing him in the heart. Where is his heart? It must be around here somewhere. Look at the volcano puffing and beating over them, someone said. Maybe it's the heart. So it is, friend, said Coyote, and began to cut at this mountain. Then the giant spoke up. Is that you, Coyote? I heard of you. Stop this stabbing and cutting and let me alone. You can leave me through my mouth. I'll open it for you. I'll leave, but not quite yet, said Coyote, hacking at the heart. He told the others to get ready. As soon as I have him in his death throes, there will be an earthquake. He'll open his jaw to take the last breath, and then his mouth will close forever. So be ready to run out fast. Coyote cut a deep hole in the giant's heart, and lava started to flow out. It was the giant's blood. The giant groaned, and the ground under the people's feet trembled. Quick now, shouted Coyote. The giant's mouth opened, and they all ran out. The last one was the wood tick. The giant's teeth were closing on him, but Coyote managed to pull him through at the last moment. Look at me, cried the wood tick. I'm all flat. It happened when I pulled you through, said Coyote. You'll always be flat from now on. Be glad you're alive. I guess I'll get used to it, said the wood tick, and he did. Now I picked these stories out before you and I talked, right? So, but this, you'll always be flat from now on. Be glad you're alive. So we were talking about this, with my house burning down and stuff, but to the point, there's always something to be grateful for,
Yep.
How are we doing on time? We're probably about done.
Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, we got is the next one short or a long one?
Well, I can skip, and
you got a short one?
Yeah, let's go with this one on page 279. I just found this to be a little cute. Anyway.
I'm getting better at finding these. Remember the last time it took me a whole show to find them? This is 279. Oh yeah, here we go.
Hang on a minute. Talk to the folks and have a discussion.
All right. I see everybody. I see Gaza Cav came in the house. Hey. Yeah. Oh, we started. Well, yeah, Gaza. We started the show with the ouch, but don't worry, we're still here. We started late, and people started piling in, and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm glad you're all here. You don't realize how much I appreciate every time I get on and I can associate with you and talk. And this is like my little, thing. I don't go anywhere. I don't do much, but here I am and enjoying it much. This is great. I consider you all my friends, and I'm glad that you all show up. I really do appreciate it. So, thanks for all I just want to tell everybody, thanks for all the emails you send me, things like that. It's really nice. Keep it up. Hey, besides that, we're going to do a UFO show one of these days. So if you got any UFO pictures, any good UFO stories, want to come on and talk about your UFO, I'm going to schedule something up. We're going to have a UFO show one night.
By the way, thanks for filling in for me. Old man got to pee. But I was going to do a little quick update earlier before we did this, and then Andromeda came on. But south of me, I've talked about this UFO that shows up here lately. It's been quite a bit, and tonight it showed up again. It was out. I couldn't check the last 2 nights because of the rain. But south of me again, there's that UFO sitting there, and I mean, it's sat in the same place. It ain't a star, it ain't a thing. But anyway, but it's back. Nice. Or maybe it never left. It was just, cloudy and raining.
Yep. I see Doug Stack says he can stay for a little while longer. Don't you worry. We're going to be out of here in a little while.
I got one more story that I just think was kind of humorous.
Okay. And I got to go to work tomorrow, so yes. I can't stay out late either. It's past my bedtime, way past now.
All right. So this is teaching the mudheads how to copulate, and it's Zuni. And I'm going to skip the little, in the italics.
Yes.
The mudheads are not very bright. Long ago, they didn't know many things, even very simple everyday actions. So a man tried to instruct them. He tried to teach them how to go up a ladder. He showed them how to do it, and they tried to copy him, but they couldn't. One tried to go up the ladder with his feet upmost and standing on his head. Another tried to climb the back of the ladder. A third kept falling through the rungs. while the fourth got all tangled up in the rungs. They just couldn't do it. Then the man tried to teach them how to build a house. He showed them the right way to do it, and they tried to imitate his actions. But one started with the roof and made the others hold up the ceiling while he tried to build downward from it. Another put together a house with no doors and windows. He built it from the inside, and when he wanted to go out, he found that he had walled himself in. The others had to break down the walls to let him out. Still another made the mud bricks out of sand. When it rained, his house collapsed into a sand pile. Try as they would, the mudheads just couldn't do it right. Now, doesn't that kind of sound a little like the three pigs? Just saying.
Yep.
Then the man tried to show them a really simple thing, how to sit on a chair. They watched and tried to do it as he did. One sat on top of the chair back and tumbled over. Another sat underneath the chair. Another sat on the chair with his back to the front. A fourth tried to sit upside down with his head where his rump ought to be. They just couldn't get the point. Well, said the instructor, I'll try one more thing. I'm going to show you how to copulate. There was an old fat woman who hadn't had a man in her for a long time. They can all practice on me, she said. I don't mind. So she lifted up her manta and bent over, and the instructor copulated with her in the simplest way from the back as dogs do. The mud heads watched closely, and then they all wanted to try, but none of them could find the right opening. One did it in the anus, another in the knee bend, another in the arm bend, another in the armpit, another in the navel, another in the ear. They tried and tried. They really wanted to do it right, but they couldn't. I give up on you, said the instructor. The fat old woman just laughed. Now, I just, you have to, that last line, the fat old woman just laughed. You know, she hadn't had a man in years, so I'll do it. I'll volunteer. I found this and I sat here and I laughed and I said, it's not really gross or, off color, but, it's like, the fat old woman just laughed. And that makes me laugh, and I thought, there's all this other seriousness, but you see, even in their stories, they have humor. Like not everything is so solid and oh my God, the earth is this and that. No, they can make jokes about themselves, and the fat old woman just laughed. So it's sort of like, we wait till the fat lady sings, but not quite. But anyway, Robert, I know you got to go to bed. It's almost 12 o'clock. And folks out there, we love you for coming out after Andromeda and showing up and hanging out with us two crazy guys. We love to share things with you. And as Robert said earlier, you all make my life very special. And many of you have sent me comments and emails and so forth. And I know what I do, I'm supposed to be doing. You all know that part. But if you knew how much it means, both Robert and I, for you all to show up and to share with us what we know and what we're learning and what we're trying to show folks, spirituality has been around a long time and there was no religion about it. And that we can all be connected. It's been going on for thousands of years. So we think now, we were talking about this earlier, in that back in the old days, before there were VCRs, if a TV program came on and you didn't see it, you didn't get to see it again unless it came back on reruns. So, and we learned to be patient back in those days. We just said, oh man, I missed that episode. I guess I'll have to wait till the spring when they start showing reruns. That was a common thing to talk about back in the day. Did you see that? No, I'll have to catch it in reruns. Now everything is instantaneous. And if you don't get it right now, then people have a fit. So patience needs to be brought back in somehow. But In the old ways, though, the old ancient teachings and the stories, there was patience in them. You know, the man and the woman in the reed, she said, well, what are we going to do? And he said, well, we'll go to sleep. Well, because the voice hadn't spoke to him, it doesn't say that, but we're assuming if the voice told him to get in the reed, that the voice, meaning a spirit of some kind, was going to help them out. So, which is interesting, after 4 days, the water received. So that's almost like a creation story. It's a recreation story. So these things have been with humanity, with in ingrained in us. And when we allow it to come out, the information is all there. It's always there.
Absolutely.
Did that make sense?
Yes. And with that, thank you everybody for coming. You're all my family. Big hugs. And remember, like our brother Brian used to say, be the frequency you want to receive. And I love you all.
Cheers.
All right. There we go.
All right, Robert. Thank